Absolutely. We're so
Hmm.
excited to be
Yeah.
here. I've like,
Mhm.
yeah, I've listened to a lot of episodes that were super great. I listened to your Red Sun ep, and we just got to see them. Lavender Point, Noemi's other band, played with them. It was fantastic. It was so sick just getting to meet those guys with all like the context and just like, it's a cool thing putting the scene together. So I love what you do.
I
Same.
appreciate that.
I was watching the Mway podcast and Enswell. I just recently got into them, so it's nice to like get into their history and everything.
Dude, hell yeah, yeah. That Wisconsin scene is popping. I'm very jealous that you guys got to see Red Sun. I have not seen them live yet.
I'm about it.
Uh,
I've prepared
We're
a
chilling.
full equipment of beer.
hell yeah. Uh, do you guys have any questions before we get started?
No, we're good, I
I'm
think.
good.
I'm pretty good.
When do we open our beverage?
Uh, right here in just a
Oh,
second.
okay. Okay, here we go.
So that's my question to you. Does everyone have an unopened beverage that they would like to participate in the opening crack with?
Oh, I already opened. I cheated.
Oh, tragic.
So what I'll do is I'll count us in. We'll crack these, and then I'll do the intro, bring the four of you in, and we'll just have a good time.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
All right.
Can I
Thanks,
do
homie.
a fake crack open?
Yeah,
Of course.
So I'm just
for the
included.
thumbnail.
All right.
I've got
Everyone's
a fake one too.
included.
I can just fake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
The code.
In 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Beers with Bands podcast with your host, Michael Torres. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Beers with Bands. This week, I'm sitting down with the band Antillion. How are y'all doing?
Good.
Great.
Good.
I'm happy to be
Wonderful.
here.
Oh yeah, I'm stoked to have y'all on. One, I don't hit that many Chicago bands. I feel like, so it's always nice to get another Chicago band on, and then also two, you guys have a killer EP out that we'll talk about here in a little bit that rips. So I'm stoked to kind of find out a little bit more about y'all and dive into that some more.
Yeah.
Sounds like
Heck
a
yeah.
plan.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you for having us.
Of course. Before we get too far, can we kind of go around the room and kind of say who you are and what you do in Antillion?
Absolutely. I'll start off. I'm Michael. I do lead vocals, and I'm the newest member of the assembled here.
I'm Bobby. I'm one of the founding members. Uh, I play
Ooh.
guitar and I write a lot of the music.
I'm Robert. I play drums. That's about it.
My name's Noemi. I also play guitar, and I usually stand on the right side of the stage.
I was gonna say we've got like 90% of our gigs have had the same setup. We got to standardize,
Mhm. Yeah.
And then I think we are missing one member tonight. Who
Mhm.
are they and what do they do?
Yeah, so Big Al on the bass is not with
Ooh.
us tonight. He has the most adult job of all of us that runs the latest, so he's a trooper. But he would
Uh,
definitely be here slamming beers in spirit.
Yeah,
This-
yeah.
Mm,
This is that
Definitely.
part of the episode where the members that aren't here. This is where we pour one out in their honor. By pour one out, I just mean we have a drink in their honor. 'cause
Absolutely.
we don't
Al,
waste
this is
alcohol
for
I'm so down
you.
for that.
Coming off the site,
for
brother.
Al.
Oh, beautiful.
Yes.
But for people that might not be aware, Antillion, you guys are like a prog post-hardcore band. I think started around like 2022. Does that sound about right, Bobby?
Yep.
And Robert and everyone.
Mhm.
Um, Release some singles that we'll get to here in a little bit. But like, kind of take me back. Obviously, I've been talking to Michael through these emails. But like him being the newest member, like what was it like forming the band back in 2022, and then kind of the journey leading up to now? Like how did it start, and what's all changed to get to where we are now?
Yeah. So, in 2022, I moved from the suburbs to Chicago, because I went to college and I moved right near it. Um, and so like with everyone knows with moving, you kind of move and like you kind of like you don't lose your friends, but you don't have people that and you want to make new friends. Uh, So I went on this app called Yik Yak, which is just an anonymous posting app uh where you can just post anything, but it's like within a certain radius. So I was just like, I've been playing guitar for like 8 years, and just like Chicago has a cool music scene. I was like, I've always wanted to play in like a band in Chicago. So I was like, all right, I'll just like shoot the shit, just like, hey, like, does anyone want to does anyone want to be in a rock band? And then Robert responded, uh and yeah, that I don't know, Robert, if you want to.
Yeah, so from there it was kind of just like, I don't know, we had two other people. We were just kind of getting anyone we could get into a rehearsal space with, and we were just like, playing covers just to see how we meshed. And it was like two other people who like literally dipped after that first rehearsal. They were like, we don't want to play your
Yeah,
scary
yeah,
music.
yeah.
Because we were like trying to play like, MCR, which, comparatively to what we're doing now is not scary at all. Um, but yeah, we started showing each other music, and we were like, oh, this is super cool. And we had a lot of like artists in common that we listened to, MCR, a lot of the like, mid 2000s emo stuff, a lot of pop punk stuff, Paramore. So we started off just playing covers and stuff. And originally Noemi was the bassist of our band. Um, and she kind of got promoted to guitarist, um, just slowly as we saw how good she was, and
LOL. Thanks.
but yeah, no shade, but to Al, since he's a great guitarist too. You should see him play.
He
But
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
that's kind of how it started. I mean, me and Noemi met at an audition. We went to the same school in the city, and we were auditioning for this pop rock ensemble. Um, and she was wearing like some DGD merch or something. I think it was a shirt. And yeah, I just walked up to her and I was like, "Hey, I like your shirt." And I had like a DGD hat on, so I was like, "Hey, look at my hat. We got the same same band." It kind of just went from there. Like I never met someone who had like all this knowledge of the scene, kind of like the Swancore scene, just like all these obscure bands that like, I don't know. No, I've never met anyone with those same tastes. So it was really cool to meet someone who had those same obscure tastes. And then we got Bobby into all that stuff, and eventually Mike,
Yeah.
and I basically
Yeah.
just corrupted all these people with my obscure
Yeah.
genre.
Originally I was just like well, not just power chords. I could do some technical stuff, but I was just like emo rock, pop punk sort of thing. That's kind of what I've been playing for such a long time. And then Robert introduced a few bands to me, and it was like, okay, this is pretty cool. Like, um, yeah.
Yeah,
Like honest,
metaphorically,
sorry, go ahead.
sorry.
No, you're
Metaphorically,
fine.
Robert's like the college coach seeking out high schoolers at the games, and he's just like looking around. That's how it felt like him coming up to me, and then him like coaching Bobby, coaching all of us through like this journey. So it's just been fun.
And ironically, I'm the youngest, so
Yeah, put
The
together a crack
baby.
team. Like I came
Yeah.
in and I came into audition, and like the first thing I thought, like Robert had like the recorder in the middle of the room and was like every song we did was like starting and stopping. I was like, yo, this kid's organized. Like this band has his shit together. Because you know what it's like. I mean, you spoke to enough musicians. It's like herding cats made of jello. So I
Right.
was like, this is a great sign that like this, we've got a really driven group of people here. It's very nice.
Which is always nice to have too, especially like the first like coming together of like if you show up for an audition and you're just like, okay, like these people are on point rather than just like, oh, just kind of play whatever and like we'll figure it out. You can kind of tell how that band's gonna go from that exact point. So obviously, probably when you were there auditioning, you were like, okay, like this is actually probably gonna last longer than if I would have went to like some other audition or did some other bullshit. Like,
No, for sure. Like as soon as I heard them, like their togetherness, and even just like the demos that they had sent over, I was like, okay, this band like has what's up. Like this the songwriting and like the just instrumental chops and stuff. And if you go back and listen to like it was my very first time like doing vocals in a project. Like I had played original music before, done a little tiny bit of writing, but I'd never like been a vocalist and handled like the majority of like lyric and melody writing for anything significant at this point, especially not in this style of music. So it's like they in my eyes, like they were so together, and I was like a baby deer with like a terrible voice, and like they liked my energy, I assume, because I eventually got my voice together. But it's a fun journey listening to those like early recordings. Even just like some of the early demos were like pretty tight, like in a strained way for me. But it's great because it's like seriously, it was just good chemistry at the start I was like, well, I have to practice and get good at this and deliver because I'm surrounded by really talented people. And so that was a great like motivation as well.
well, and then besides just that point, like anytime someone new is coming into a project that's kind of already established, obviously, Bobby, Robert, and Noemi like already like have a friendship built. So coming into that, already feeling like the new kid at school and like having to break down that barrier is always like a tough thing to deal with. But hearing like these recordings, seeing how y'all have interacted so far, like I can tell like that probably broke down real fast and like was just real quick going on.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the reasons why it was so apparent that Mike was like the right person for the job was because he was just like a nice guy. Like I don't think that we've talked about this before, but my first meeting of Mike was I got locked out of our building. Like we
Oh
had
my
a
God.
we were practicing at
I forgot
my
about
a
this.
school that we went to, and we were just using like one of the what was it, like the concert room, the performance room or whatever. Um and it was like I think it was a weekend or something, but it was after hours obviously.
Hmm.
So we got locked out. I didn't have a key or anything, and I also left my phone in the car, which coincidentally drove off because I didn't I didn't drive there by myself. So I had literally no way to like contact anyone to open the door for me to like get my phone back. I was like running to another building to talk to someone and get a phone. um and Mike graciously lent me his phone because he showed up. I was like, hey, are you Mike by chance? Because he walks up, he's like, yeah dude, I'm Mike, what's up? And I'm like, this is really awkward, but can I use your phone? I locked myself out of the building and I don't have a phone. And he's so nice about it. Like I called the band Instagram and Noemi like didn't pick up because she thought it was just some random person. We eventually got it sorted, but like basically the first interaction with Mike was just like him being a cool dude, like a random stranger just being super nice. And like that's the vibe we got from the audition. Like he was just a nice, super chill guy, easy to work with, and like we already felt like friends by the end of the audition, like it was so natural. We didn't even talk about it afterwards. We were just like, yeah, I think we're all in agreement, like, this guy's in.
Right. I was like, I just didn't know if my vocals were like good enough. But then
I've
like you
always
guys were
thought
like,
your
yeah,
vocals are good.
you just like added, you just threw me in the band group chat, and I was like, yo.
Bro had the passion. He had the sauce.
Listen,
Yeah.
I really sang my heart out on Edward 40 Hands, like my life depended on it,
Yeah,
and here I
yeah.
am. We got to break that out sometime.
Yeah, we're bringing it back. Bringing it back.
Yeah.
Dude, hell yes. Before we get too far, I got to jump back to the whole how the band actually fully started by just making a post on Yik Yak because I lived. I'm from originally like Southeast Iowa, around the Iowa City area, so Yik Yak was a big thing on all the college campuses
Mhm.
for a while before it finally died out. I've always heard of bands, meeting together from like Craigslist and doing that stuff. But I think you're the only band I've ever heard of that formed because of Yik Yak. So it's nice
Yeah.
to see that at least some good things came out of that app.
Yeah. It's really coincidental because like after we formed the band, through Yik Yak, I think they dropped support for Android, and I have an Android phone, and I think it's just kind of dying now. So it's like we got in last minute, made the post, and got out.
Yeah,
That's
I,
crazy.
it's amazing to see. And also, you guys have outlived Yik Yak, I'm pretty sure at this point, because, like you said, it dropped from Android, but I don't even think it's on iPhones anymore on the App Store there. So, I mean, props to the four of you. As we're getting kind of more into the music, when I was growing up in like listening to music and like going through my emo phase and all that stuff, some of the bands that I never listened to were like Dance Gavin Dance, all of that style, kind of what you guys sound similar to. I got into kind of some things later, like with the band Dwellings, who also rips and like stuff like that. I had to go back. I listened to the EP today, and then I had to go back and like listen to Dwellings to like because it rekindled my feelings for everything. And it's so sick to like Mike, like you're worried about your vocals, like everything sounds so sick on this EP. And it's nice to because like a lot of what I listen to is like either hardcore, emo, or I listen to like a lot of Hispanic music. So it's nice to pepper something like this in and just kind of change it up. And it was the CP sick is basically what I'm getting at. You guys killed it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Dwellings is great to hear as a comparison because, like, truly, that was one of the first bands that was like a song I heard that was in the post-hardcore genre that I really liked before I understood what the genre was. Because, bless their hearts, I had like two really good friends in high school who tried desperately to put me on to like Dance Gavin Dance, Hail the Sun, Silverstein, like all this good shit, like Enter Shikari, and I was like, I just don't like screaming. Like I don't know. It was like so lame. I was just not ready for it. And like Lemonade by Dwellings, I think, was one of the first songs in the genre that I was like, oh my God, this goes insanely hard. Like I would love to listen to it. But like I'm glad that it's a change up because I mean Robert just submitted our, we have this like streamer we watch who reviews music who we like to like submit our tunes to just for, like someone who has no reason to be nice to us, like just give us an objective review of like our mix or whatever. And it was cool because we sent him an instrumental without my vocals on it yet, and he was like, "This is great. I just hope it's not some high voice Johnny Craig impersonator." And Robert and I were like, "Yes, like he's gonna love my range. It's beautiful."
I mean, obviously, we're talking about the EP called Aftertaste, which came out mid June, I think on the 12th of June.
Right,
but leading
12th of
up to
July,
that,
but just after.
12th of July. Okay.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know
yeah.
where did I see. I don't know where I saw June from, so my bad. July.
We had a
Thanks
big
for
show in
correcting me.
June that we were blowing up everywhere. But release date notwithstanding.
Okay. But leading up to that, you released 3 singles leading up to it, starting with Ending on a Bad Note, which, funny enough, that's the last song on the EP, but it's the first single you guys came out with. Like, how did it feel to, like, come out swinging with, like, that as the song and being like, hey, we are Antillion, this is who we are, this is what we sound like, check us out.
Yeah. I love this because like the amount of thought that we put into like the singles and what order we were going to release them in was so much because we loved all the songs so much, but as you've heard, it's like every song on the EP is a wildly different like genre and feel. And so I think, I definitely will let the others speak on it, but I think Ending on a Bad Note kind of felt like
your mic just cut out.
No.
Ending on a Bad Note felt like a really good bridge to the kind of like harder music that Antillion like really is into. And so it's kind of like, it's like Baby's first breakdown and like the pop punk kind of drive to it is almost like this like olive branch from people who listen to like like normal music, like, hey, we're about to make swancore, but like you can sing to this. Like you can sing along to this hook.
Yeah.
So it was like I think it was kind of like almost like a mass appeal song, but also great because Ending on a Bad Note for me, like narratively, is kind of like, you know, my songwriting headspace when I began with Antillion, like that's Ending on a Bad Note, like as a biography. So it felt like the perfect song to come out with. But I know like Bobby has a ton of DNA all over that song. So like definitely talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, so I think it was me, Noemi and Robert. We were practicing, and I kind of like brought out this idea. I've been kind of on and off songwriting, so I like whenever I have, a cool idea, I'll record it and just, have it in Google Drive. And that was an idea that I want to say is probably from now, it's probably about 4 or 5 years old. I had it and I was just like, hey, like, what if we jam on this thing? And then I'm like, okay, well, what if we go here? Like thinking that I'm just like really shy. So I'm just like, okay, like what if we do this? But like I already knew what the entire song was. And then eventually it just came together and yeah. And then uh having Mike on the vocals for that and like how the just like how he came across emotionally through that song was pretty big.
I'd like to add that the breakdown in that song was a complete joke thrown in by me. We were at that very first rehearsal. He brought it in. He's like, all right, now it goes to this part. Now it goes to this part. And I was just like, all right, you're playing that riff. I'm just gonna throw a breakdown over it because why not? Like I love breakdowns and you love MCR, so I'm gonna expose you to something new.
Yeah.
And Noemi's already into that type of stuff, and she was doing some cool panic chords over it, and I was just like, yeah, this is sick. And I didn't expect it to stick, but they're like, yeah, we're keeping that in there. I was like, wait, what? I think because when we started, like we didn't even know if it was gonna be a band. Like we were just like three people jamming in a room. Like we weren't really like sure of where the direction was going. We didn't say, hey, this is gonna be a Dance Gavin Dance, Swan Corey, like emo band. We had no idea like what type of sound we wanted, so it was just throwing darts at a board. And I feel like that sort of just thrown in breakdown sort of thing kind of set us in a certain direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even though it was the first single that came out, we like as a band like aren't even sure if that's like Antillion, if that like represents our sound. But I think it just goes to show that like we still had to like sell it like in the context that like Bobby showed it to us. And then I think in the context with like the entire album, it's just like our melting pot of influences. And then ultimately like adapting to whatever we're thrown at and then creating the sound that we want. And it was fun to do that along the way. Like Robert said, like doing that improv breakdown and we were just throwing shit in there.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the EP kind of has this distinctive essence of like each track kind of has one of our fingerprints much more heavily on it than the others, I think.
Right.
And so it's like everyone is getting to like play in their space. But what's so exciting about that is like, the first song after this EP that we just, went and recorded is like the first time that we got to like write collaboratively and turn that like melting pot instead of like someone provides a structure and like most of the bones and people add their flavor and style to it. It's like things that we really just like cooked up together simultaneously. And so it's
Mhm.
going to be fun because, this EP is kind of a tour of our styles, and then everything that comes after is going to be all of them distilled each song.
That's a cool way to look at it too. Is like I'm now that makes me like even more stoked to see what the next singles and like the next releases are gonna look like because those are gonna be full Antillion rather than just like this EP, which nothing against this EP as we're talking about it, but like it this EP is more just like this is kind of who we are, this is who we could be, where do we branch out from here is kind of more what it's sounding like. So I'm stoked to see where these branches kind of go and where they kind of intermix again and like how it progresses from here.
Yeah, you'll get the leaks. Don't worry.
Oh yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, ending on a bad note was like a great way to kind of segue into like Antillion, and then you kind of 180 it, and then your second single is Maybe It's Cruel, which for people that haven't listened to the EP yet, it's the first song on the EP, so it's kind of going end to first. But when you first come in on Maybe It's Cruel, and like the first note you hit, you're just like, okay, like I want to see where this fucking goes, because like this just took me for a ride. So it's nice to see that kind of like contrast between the two as your first initial singles of like, all right, we can do this, but then we can also do this at the same time. So it's really sick.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that was definitely intentional. It's like this one, like if ending on a bad note was for like tell our friends and family like our band has our first song out, tell everyone you know. Like maybe it's cruel was like for the post-hardcore heads, you know what I mean? Like for the
Mhm.
target audience. And I think it's nice because like there's almost like a the EP starts with Maybe It's Cruel, and it's kind of the highest complexity and like most dynamic song, and then like progressively through the EP you just get like raw and like less produced, and it
Yeah.
becomes like more and more focused and punchy. And I think that's fun as well because it's like we're almost like if we're gonna ask people to give us a lot of attention for a really complicated song, we'll do it right at the start, and we'll make things simpler and lighter as it goes almost.
Yeah. Yeah, that song was Maybe It's Cruel was kind of just from uh Robert showing me DGD. Like I never listened to post-hardcore. And he was like, "Hey Bobby, like check out these songs. I think you might like them." And I really liked them, and it was one of those things where I just like when I listen to music, if I find something I like, I just have it on repeat. That's all I listen to. So I'm just like, okay, like what are they doing here in this music? And then it was like that song was me trying to get into prog, like progressive hardcore. And a lot of it, I think, was just a combination of like my past influences and DGD, what I was hearing.
Yeah,
And also
I
like
feel like it. Sorry, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say fun fact about the song is that that was like fully instrument. I mean, everything was fully instrumental before I joined along, but that song specifically ended up being my like audition for the band. Basically, was to, like write a vocal part, and it's like largely what ended up sticking for the EP is what was written there. And like as soon as I heard the instrumental, my brain went in the same place. I was like, I have to deliver the most Dance Gavin Dance performance of my life. Um, and yeah, it was really fun going into that space and just like coming out somewhere that still was like our own for sure. But I it was definitely an intense, wild, like many sectioned song to decipher and just be like, I have to write vocals for this whole thing. And there were no screams on it originally because I was like, I'm not even gonna embarrass myself like this. But the band was like, no, dude, like we want screams. Like you should really go for it. Um, and so they encouraged me along. The first screams that Robert provided are also
Yeah,
available
yeah,
in the deep locked archives.
yeah.
Never going out, by the way.
Uh, no, yeah. I mean, I had two solid singles to come out with. And then I know, kind of like Mike, you kind of mentioned, like there was a lot of discussion and a lot of time put in to figure out what singles you guys wanted to put out. And you to your third single leading up to the EP. And I know I'm gonna butcher the name of this song
Totally
so
okay.
bad. Uh,
We can take the bullet for you.
yeah, go.
It's
Yeah, go ahead.
pronounced Okija, and it's
Okay, yeah,
okay. It's not a common word at all. Robert found this word mining.
Yeah, literally just like on the internet looking for cool song titles, something obscure and pretentious that people would. But that was the intention. Okay, so I want you to feel bad.
A word you must
Um,
look up online.
yeah, and I won't even attempt to explain the definition. Okay, well, I will a little bit, but it's like
Might as
You got
well.
it. You got
it's
it.
it's pretty difficult, but it's like the obscure feeling that the role you took in someone's life could be easily replaced by someone else. So it's kind of an encapsulating idea for the EP. If Mike, you wanna talk more about that since you wrote
Yeah,
everything.
sure. I mean, I think Okuja is definitely the most lyrically like rich and dense song. And yeah, it's great that because this band, even though it's like I'm writing the vast majority of the lyrics and stuff, I feel like I still feel a lot of like shared ownership over like the message and like emotion of the songs with the rest of the band. Because even just like song titles that like Robert or Bobby will come up with, or like Bobby will like write some lyrics or like show me like kind of like the emotion he's going for with something, and like that helps me like lead me to the same place as them while still, pulling from my own authentic songwriting impulse. um and Okija was just like a perfect one because there were a bunch of super lame like song titles bouncing around in my brain for this song, because I was like, God, this song is just like, all the lyrics feel like so impactful and punchy to me, but like singling any of them out feels corny. And so Robert came in with like Okija, and I read it and I read the definition. I was like, you bastard, you did it again. So it's great. Like it's collaborative, even just like by coincidence. Sometimes it's wonderful.
Uh, One other thing I wanted to give you guys props on is a lot of bands, depending on whether they're releasing, a full LP or an EP, most of their singles or all of their singles end up being like the front half of that EP or album. So to do, ending on a bad note with that being the first single and it being the last track on the EP, like that's a very nice move to do, in my opinion. Because I know if I would have listened to that ahead of time and then I go into the EP, I'm like, okay, I know this song's out here, and it makes me want to listen towards the end and figure out like when it's gonna come up, rather than like, there's amazing songs out there, but then someone will do like their first four as their singles, and you're like, okay, I've heard all of these, like I don't need to listen to past song four, maybe even song five, and like it's nice to see you guys kind of change it up and do like the last track is the first single and then kind of go out that way. Like that's a nice move to do.
Yeah, and I appreciate that as well, because like I feel like the context that the EP gives that single is almost a little helpful as well. Where like when you just listen to that single when we first come out, like exactly like you hear it, it's like this is very pop punk, like this is very anthemic. It's like not super like daring, at least as far as like it's not like abrasive music at all. At least in my opinion, but like it feels like after going through the rest of the EP, we've almost kind of earned it more. Where it's like after you've heard like you've heard the screams, and like you've heard another breakdown, and you've heard Bobby doing crazy tapping shit on Okija. I guess that's more of a pull off riff than a tapping riff, but it's both. Um, and so and like that I feel like contextualizes the pop punk anthem song a little better as well, where it's like, this isn't the whole bag, so it's almost, I feel like it's more gratifying for us to just like whip out the nostalgia chords. um and it's fun as well because like Pray, which is one of the songs that was exclusive to just the EP, and really more of an interlude, but like, this is post-hardcore, so it's like we got like 5-minute singles, and like my interlude is as long as like an Mway song. Like it shit just works out sometimes. But like it's fun as well because Prey gave me an opportunity to not only kind of like provide a lyrical, like emotional epilogue to Bear Trap to kind of give it some weight that the lyrics within the song kind of like walk up to the door of and stop at, giving it some vulnerability, but also ending on a bad note. That opening guitar riff, which is very MCR, always felt kind of like an alarm clock going off, just like your alarm
Oh, you cut out again.
your alarm clock goes off and like panic and dread fills your body. Like that's what that song felt like to me. And Prey is kind of this like dreamy nightmare sequency, so it almost like gave a little bit of like a narrative and like scenic context as well to ending on a bad note that it didn't get to have as a single. So I'm really glad that we were able to place it later in the EP and kind of make it part of the full release, and give it a fresh identity. And coincidentally, it got remastered and sounds crisp and delicious.
Yeah, it definitely sounds at this point. I don't know how you guys feel about it. Uh, closing out the album sounds very nostalgic at this point, even though the album or the EP did just come out. Um, we've like played around with the order in our set. We usually had it last, but our past two shows we bumped it up to the front. and it's gotten a really good reaction those past two shows. Like who? They're coming back with a punch, and then we lay it all out the rest of the set.
Yeah, it's definitely a song that is translated really well live, where like, you know, originally at the end of our set, it's like same kind of vibe as the EP. It's like we earned it, you know, we earned kind of the anthem moment, because we're all like dripping sweat and like all pumped up. Um, and so yeah, but now it's like as soon as we got the first couple experiences of people like singing that chorus back to us, and you know, it's like it's the homies, like it's your friends who are also in local bands who are just like really about the scene, but it doesn't change it anymore. They're like, it's awesome and feels great to have people singing back at you. So like it's like we hit that point and it's like, all right, the fans were like in whatever numbers they be, like now we're familiar with ending on a bad note. Now we can give it back to them at the front. It feels really sick.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's amazing. Like that's one thing I really miss about doing being a part of like a lot of local shows is just all the homies. Whether like I just did the 5 year Beers the Band show back in June, and I even said leading up to that, I was like, whether there's 40 people or 400, I don't give a shit. As long as the homies come out and like I get to see all the homies and like have a good time and just like vibe, like that's all that matters. And like that's the shit I miss about the local level shows and being a part of a lot of those. So you know, whether there's like people that like I mean, it's great if people are coming out that are finding you guys and like singing along, but it's also sick to have your homies be like, no, these guys are also putting on sick jams. We're all in the same scene, and like they're still singing along. They're in the front row. They're finger pointing. They're doing their thing.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so obviously these three singles come out. The EP comes out July 12th. So it's been out at this time, you know, a little over 2-3 weeks at this point. Like, how does it feel to finally have like the full thing out? Like it's finally like you don't have to hold it back anymore. You don't have to drop like the secret links anymore. It's out for the world to hear. It's been out there. Like, how does it feel now?
I'd say, at least for me, it's like kind of closing a chapter, in terms of like that all those songs were about us finding what we wanted to sound like, and now we can focus on, you know, the cooler like tapping stuff and whatever. Yeah. Um, but yeah, so like I don't know, I'm just excited like for, you know, people to listen and it's just like what they think of each song. Like obviously each song is sounds very different, so I'm kind of interested to see which are the favorites.
I think I've been told by a lot of people that Bear Trap is like their hidden favorite, which is funny because it's like, you know, a lot of the people that are telling me this are like, you know, they're also into the post-hardcore scene, and Bear Trap is kind of like this four on the floor caveman rock thing, um, which is intentional. Don't get me wrong, but you know, it's got a little spice in the bridge. Um, but yeah, it was kind of interesting. It's just like I feel like being able to go into so many different like genres and just mix like our sound. Like we do call ourselves post-hardcore, but from an outside perspective, like if you took out Maybe It's Cruel, would you even think that like we consider ourselves post-hardcore if you knew nothing about the band? Like you probably wouldn't. But it's kind of cool that like we gave it a little taste, and with the stuff that we're coming out with, I'd say like, you know, next year start leaking or whatever. um you know, with that sort of stuff, you're just gonna get like the full dessert. Like it's we're just super excited that we have this out so we can move on to like stuff that just absolutely knocks people's socks off, like putting out the music that we really really are excited about. um and it was a good little test run. Like don't get me wrong, we love these songs, but it was just really cool to kind of figure out our stuff and people enjoy it. Like because from now on it's just going to be like a whole different thing. Like we're so excited to just like, you know, really surprise people.
Yeah, having the EP out for me has been like a good source of communication within my bubble. Like there's a lot of people from high school that I haven't like spoken to like since graduation, and they're like hitting me up, telling me like, "Dang, like your band sounds so awesome and everything." And then speaking broadly, uh, people finding our stuff on the internet, and then just like other bands from other states and cities reaching out to us, being like, that song went so hard and everything. Like my favorite song, Bear Trap. I love Ending. So like just being able to like communicate outside of our DIY scene.
Yeah, and even getting sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, you hit it. Go.
Um, even getting like recognition from like bands we look up to and are like presently in the scene. I won't name names just for like anonymity, but like, you know, we never expected to off the rip just be like, you know, hit up by people we've had in our playlist for years. At least I have, and just be like, yo, why are you here? Why are you talking to me? Like, how do you even know us? Like, and second of all, like, you're giving us props? Like, what? Because honestly, like, I wouldn't even put us on their level, but just like having that experience was just eye-opening. Like, I remember Mike, he opened up a text from like the band Instagram, and it was one of those bands like hitting us up and like shouting us out or whatever, and we were just like freaking out for like the whole day because we were so starstruck. It was a great experience.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like a release is great because, like, you know, as much as something I put out online the other day was like the worst like phenomenon is that like every band's best music is what's furthest from being released, and like what they like the most, just because like you're always getting better and writing new shit you love. Um, but so it's like I definitely echo Bobby's sentiment where it's like, God, I'm just like I wish that we already had in hand like the newest shit as well. But that's what makes live music so beautiful though, is because like, even before this EP came out, like the newer songs we wrote that kind of have that sound that we play live. I mean, people who like have no reason to like be like nice to us or shout us out. Like there's a local musician who's been doing it a long time, and like he has a ton of albums out, has played 1,000,001 gigs. He has no reason to shout us out. And he comes up on stage after we play at like a local sports bar, and he's like, these guys are like remind me of like, at the drive-in and like the fall of Troy. And we're like, I could kiss you. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's all I've ever
Yeah.
that's all I need to hear. And so that's what's so great. But like definitely, like Noemi was saying, what's wonderful about this release is like, even though it's like, you know, we feel like these songs have been with us for a while because we've been playing them, obviously, but like it's so nice to just get to present something to the world and just get to like talk to a bunch of people about it. Like not just doing things like this and speaking to you and like sick podcasts and interviews, but just exactly like hearing from other bands that are like, yo, this thing is finally out. I think it's worth listening to. From people who it's like obviously have 1,000,001 local bands to be spinning. It's like to have some of their time is pretty awesome. So it's been a great feeling for sure. Finally having that out.
No, I think that's amazing that all of this these great things are happening to you. Kind of to reiterate, like what Bobby said, like this is the first chapter of this band, and like to see where it goes. Like the book's not done. The book's still being written. It's still going. I'm stoked to see what the next chapters are like. Because like I've said on previous episodes, every chapter is or every release is like a chapter in a band's life. That's where you guys were at this point. So to see what comes after Aftertaste is going to be amazing. And I want to talk about before we branch too far. Like you have a behind the scenes video out from your recording days, and it was all you guys basically recorded everything in your friend's basement. And I don't know, when I think of like I might be a little bit older than the four of you. I'm 31, so like back in my time, not to sound old as hell, but like my friends when they were recording stuff in their basements, it sounded nothing like this. Like so, it's like this came out so amazing, um, and like you guys are on a great track, and I'm really stoked to see just like the trajectory that you guys take from here.
Yeah, there's definitely some shout outs to give. I remember from the Red Sun app, it was like shout out central. It was like shout outs every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But Grant Sibley produced phenomenal, a homie we know through Noemi, absolutely super tight.
Yeah.
Some other local bands are in the area also produced for them. And Robert, you got this last name. I'm getting another beer.
Yeah, my friend Jacob Nowakowski, shout out to him. He's we went to high school together and we played in a ton of bands together. Definitely not anything like this type of music. He's a classic rock, blues, jazz guy. He's like mentally 50 years old, but so it was a challenge to like, get him to do this sort of music and things. So that was a beautiful crack, Mike. Thank you for that. It was a challenge to get him to do something so out of his comfort zone, but he was excited to do it. And yeah, that is his basement. Like I said, he's a huge music dude. Like his entire family is all in on the music stuff. So his basement is less of like, oh dude, I got a studio in my basement, want to come record, and more of like, hey, this is my DIY like recording studio. Because it really is just like, a straight up studio. It's a nice place. And we got super lucky with that. And if it sounded that good, like with that, like we're super excited to I keep saying this, but to show off what we've got coming next, because like we're not pulling out we're pulling all the stops out on these next like releases, whenever that may be.
Putting a lot of money in. So if you go to a DIY show, buy some t-shirts. Buy
Yes.
some t-shirts so they can record in a studio because it sounds dope. It's so worth it.
Now in that behind the scenes video, we do get to see Robert play some bongos, and I was trying to listen back through after I watched that video to figure out what song the bongos show up in. But my I guess what song does that show up in? But my part two to that question is there anything else that you guys used to record that was like not out of the normal, prog post-hardcore instruments that made it into this EP?
Yeah, so there were Jacob coming from like, not this genre. He was very experimental. And we did have to like shut down some stuff. Like he pulled out the lap steel and mandolin at some point. I was like, okay, it's a cool idea, but I don't know if it fit. Maybe if we wrote it into the song, it would work. But just coming in and putting it as a texture, it was a little out of place. But yeah, bongos, that was on Bear Trap in the little bridge section. It's a very like kind of tame section, and I wanted something just with a little more texture, and it's purposely mixed like very low, so it without it would feel a little bit more empty, but you barely notice it. You'd have to be listening for it. So I don't blame you. We played bongos, and then also, which we didn't put in the video, is I played djembe, or conga rather. There's also shaker if you kind of listen very closely. So yeah, quite a few percussion instruments, and I feel like that's the only song that has something like that. But I'd definitely open to doing more percussion stuff like that, because in high school I did do like a percussion ensemble and like all those percussion type things, just not always drum set for me. So
Yeah, we just broke out a nylon guitar in the studio, so that was
Oh, yeah.
fun. That's gonna be a good time. Just at the advice of a sick producer that we're excited about. He was like, change everything. Like break out a nylon guitar for him. I'm like, what a genius. This is why we're paying.
I also got to commend y'all for going and getting canes and then still recording, because I eat a cane combo and then I'm usually out for like a few hours.
Yes.
Yeah, for real. Sponsored by Canes or Culver's. Whoever wants to
Yeah.
give us the money first, I'm about it.
Also, who was it that said that they would rather eat Popeyes every day than Canes? Because
I think it was Al.
Yeah.
That was
it
Jacob.
That was how.
That was
Al and
Jacob.
Jacob were both shit talking Canes. It was
Yeah.
controversial. I don't
Oof.
claim any of that. Joey
Those-
Chestnut
yeah.
would be disappointed.
those some tough words, man.
Great musicians, terrible food takes.
Yeah, everyone go if you haven't already, go listen to Aftertaste. Go watch the behind the scenes video. Also, you guys have like a nice little vlog of going to play Kalamazoo, so go watch that. I always love when bands are starting to do like little stuff like that. You have like little behind the scenes, and there's also a bunch of live show recordings for a lot of the songs. I think pretty much at this point, all the songs from the EP have had a live version. I think I saw.
Yes, absolutely. We got a lot of live vids up. We actually also just posted a Dance Gavin Dance cover video.
Yep.
Son of Robot, very excited. Bobby and Robert killed that. It was one of the first songs that I ever got into the scene with, so that was super exciting for me. Yeah, definitely hit the YouTube. We want to make more vlog stuff for sure. I want to I'm trying so hard to get like a camcorder or something so we can unify how it's recorded and have something that have some consistent cool stuff. But we're just trying to get as much footage as we can for the backlogs, because that trip, even, it was 2 hours. It was not a far drive at all, but it still felt so cool. Just going to a new place, getting to hang with some homies. We walk into a restaurant, the server immediately clocks us as a band. He's like, "Are you playing Lunchbox tonight? So you're Antillion." And it's like, yeah, what the that's crazy. I've never been recognized somewhere theoretically. Just such cool memories. And shout out to Cars from Chicago. They're great. They're on the come up. They're opening a dope show that Sunfo is playing here in Chicago soon. Yeah, and also Red Deck Wins. Absolutely fantastic. They just went from 30 30 monthlies on Spotify to 1100, and they totally deserve it. I found out what button I keep pressing, by the way. That was a super fun show. So yeah, definitely want to get more behind the scenes, but the YouTube is fun. We're gonna be quietly, doing more writing and recording. So it's all the new content while we're not doing shows for a month and a half is gonna just be me posting shit to YouTube every now and then. Just whatever videos in our Google Drive that I keep going back and watching. I'm like, the people deserve it.
Well, it's such a cool thing because again, not to sound like the old guy, but back when I was on the road with my friends doing stuff, I wish one of us would have had the thought to be hey, I'm gonna record a bunch of shit and just have it for to think about. Yeah, we have a bunch of pictures from our times on the road, but it's it means a little bit more if there's a video format of it, or just you and your good friends just fucking around, either eating somewhere in a different state or just watching a guy beer bong Four Locos. That's a deep cut that's Tyler from Stars Hollow. Shout out. But just doing shit like that, I wish we did that. And it's nice to see everyone else doing it now, because I'm yes, those are fucking memories that you want to document in any way you can.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because I feel elementally, if if Antillion has a message yet, we only have talked a little bit about this as a band, but if Antillion has a message yet, it's essentially life is hard as fuck. So chase the cool shit, chase the shit that makes you feel alive and happy. And I think that, yeah, touring around with your friends is just essentially and elementally worth it. No matter how far it goes,
Yeah.
or how much you're in the hole or whatever for gas, it's just essentially worth it every time. If 10 people are there, that's 10 friends. That's sick.
Yeah. And then also bouncing off what Noemi said earlier is you meet right now. It's a great time because you can post a song and you'll have someone from a different state hit you up and say, hey, that song was sick. If you're ever coming through, let's show swap or do something. But then getting out on the road and meeting those people and building those connections, there's still people in Colorado Springs and Richmond, Virginia that I talk to on a decent regular basis that I could be driving through, not even intentionally meaning to stop there and be oh, I know someone from here, let me hit them up. And then they would be do you want to get supper? Do you need a place to stay? Do you need this or this? And it got to the point where our last few tours were just routing to go just see all of our friends and just staying at their house for a couple days and then go play a show somewhere else and just crash and then just go do it again. And just it's such good times, and I'm so stoked to see you guys experience all those moments as well. I know we've talked Antillion the band, we talked Aftertaste, the EP, but is there anything I might have missed between the two that you want the people to know about?
I'm trying to think if there's, while you guys cook, if there's anything else. I think that the only shout outs we missed are Juliet helped one of my friends from like one of my old bands that I used to be in, helped on Okija, the spoken word part, underneath the break or underneath the build up is me and her in the background. Basically like the only person who has like the personal life context of what all these songs are about. Like actually my day one, I was racking my brain forever, like who would I even feel comfortable asking to like act out this shit with me? And it was her, and so that was great. And then also my
Which
homie Foster, who made
since you
the
brought that
EP
up,
art. Yeah.
I did have that in one of my notes. With that sound clip and you two doing it, was there like what was the inspiration behind that? Because I was trying to figure out, like everyone knows with these episodes, like I love sound clips in like emo music, so it's
Yeah.
I was always trying to like figure out like okay, well like what is this from? But to hear that it's just the two of you kind of doing this off a script, or like what was the inspiration, or did like you take a script from something else to kind of rework it into this just so it's you guys, and then like how did it work out?
Right. So I'll start this with Robert because I think you were the one who was like we should do something like this in this song under this build up. And then I'll jump back in and talk
Yeah.
about the lyrics.
So heavily inspired by if you know Weezer, was it Undone Sweaters? Is that it? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Is it Undone Sweater song? Yeah, it starts with like the
That's
party
exactly
talk.
the right amount of Weezer fan to be like, this is a Weezer reference, but I don't actually know Weezer well enough to know what this song is called.
I hate to say it, but I do. I am actually a Weezer fan, but you know I'm a little bit rusty. But yeah, Undone Sweater song. You know the party talk. It's iconic. It's funny. And then also Hail the Sun. If you're, I don't know if you're super familiar with Hail the Sun, but their first record, album, Power Right and the Kisser, has some really like, you know, just super edgy, like acted out like yelling and like talking and just random like, you know, things thrown in there just to make it kind of seem wacky, and like I don't even know where they got the inspiration from. But those are the two main inspirations, and I wanted to kind of copy that and just be like, hey, we're edgy too. And
Yeah.
luckily Mike was down to it and down for it, and I'll let him explain the sort of context behind.
Yeah. So and that's great to hear as well, because like and I've actually noticed from like some of your episodes, like you love asking where the sound clips are from, like Red Sun and Mway, like they obviously have so many video game references,
Which
and
makes me
stuff
feel
like that.
old and dumb as hell because I don't get any video game references, and I'm like, oh, okay, I would never gotten that.
Listen, not understanding the Red Sun League of Legends stuff is okay because it means your heart, soul, and brain are safe. Because me and Robert have that brain rot, and it's just a net negative experience in my life. But yeah, the I feel like in my music listening, a lot of those kind of like those clips, a lot of like Hot Mulligan, especially the most recent record, they did a lot of that, just kind of like throwback nostalgia feel. Um, and that song is basically, or that spoken word part is basically like a mimed out like extreme truncation of like one of these like final like brutal like long car ride conversations I had with like this old like situationship where it's like our shit was just not working out, obviously. Like there's an EP plus more coming about it. Like I don't have to expound too much. But yeah, and so it was kind of like I was trying to find a way to sort of the Okija is a very, I think it's the most aggressive song. Like I when we were just about to release it, I remember posting. I was like, this song talks more shit than any song I've ever like written in my life. And so it's kind of like um it's almost just like a contextual like explanation almost. It's like where does all this like where does all this like fractiousness and like misunderstanding like come from? And so it was like this like super truncated like Easter egg for anyone who wanted to be like, what's the lore? Like what gives? And it's this like super brief synopsis of like the breakdown in communication where it all went wrong, and like the Antillion like muse was born in my brain, because like seriously, it's like this specific like the specific 2-year saga like relationship, like I was not a writer before it at all. Like I played bass in some bands and I liked music and I tried to write music, tried to write lyrics now and then. But like something like you go through some things in your life and you sit down and you're like, I need to write music about this. And then the lyrics start coming. And so it was seriously like serendipitous that I found Antillion when I did, because it was like the second group I auditioned for. The first, like when I was like, okay, I went through some shit. I'm ready to write music. I'm open to being a lead singer. Let me look what's out there. The first band ghosted me because I think I posted something that was like pro union and they were like chuds. And I was like, sure, like whatever. Like I'm like, fine, but you could have at least told me that you weren't going to show up to this open mic I drove an hour for. But it was meant to be, obviously, because I found Antillion right after that. And it was just meant to be, for sure.
Basically, when Mike starts running out of lyrical content, we're going to expose him to a lot of traumatic stuff. Just so he gets the gears turning again.
It wasn't this ex, but I did have an ex and her sister be like, that boy's too nice. He needs to go through more shit. I think I was cursed. Which is also coincidentally lyrically represented in the album.
I feel like that's always like an underlying joke that like every like emo-esque band has. They're always like, oh yeah, like once like we run out of this, once this EP is done, we got to figure out like we got to get him a girlfriend and like get him with like Heartbroken right away to get the next material.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's always something interesting to me. It's like there's so much emo music written in like the present or very near past tense, where it's like, you know, it's weird trying to find like where in time to kind of put myself when I'm trying to songwrite, because like I've like processed and intellectualized and like healed and therapized. And so it's like I'm just like gunning from my self-worth hill. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of emo music that's very like going through it like in the throes of, you know, the very same like, you know, self-sacrificing like self-deprecation that like I was deep in. And so it's like really weird kind of just like trying to find more music like of this tone, but it's a funny split because like post-hardcore has a lot more of it. Like post-hardcore is a lot more of like these like big ego dudes who are like, and you'll miss me and you'll like it and I don't give a fuck. And so it's like I found the right genre for me, but like I still spit it like on the emo bars, you know.
I was trying to think of how that would sound. Like it's just more just like, and you'll like miss me. You missed out. Like it's just way more like toned down than just like right in your face, like most like hardcore like that metalcore side would be.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we're trying hard to like
it's mom jeans. It's mom
yeah,
jeans.
exactly. It's like also it's like mom jeans with like a little bit of like healing, you know, where it's like this meant a lot to me and that really hurt, you know, but I'm gonna be fine. You know, it's not the most vengeful. It just sounds really aggressive.
Yeah.
We got to create a tagline: Antillion mom jeans, but with more self-respect. Not at all accurate to how we sound, but you know.
Right. I was like, I could get more pathetic. We'll find the right songs.
Yeah. Well, you know, like I know we hit all the points, and like I said, as we're like starting to transition, Aftertaste sounds great. Like everyone that's listening or watching, please go listen to it. But now we're gonna start to transition and kind of lead out the episode. But before we do that, you know, this is Beers with Fans. You don't have to be drinking on these episodes because I'll definitely do that for you. But what are y'all drinking on this fine Monday night?
I got my PBR in hand, left over from the weekend.
Ripping Olipop. Oh, got like censored out. It's getting censored. Oh,
not sponsored.
Zoom does not want Olipop to get
no.
I've got the classic Coca-Cola because I have work tomorrow, and I'm probably going to sleep after this. So
yeah, I was frozen between the PBR and the Miller Lite because Al, shout out. He calls himself Frugal for frugal. When he walks into a bar, he says, "What is your cheapest beer?" That is his question, and he orders that beer, and that's my guy. And I was ready to go Miller Lite just in his honor, but also I feel like PBR is like Chicago's beer. I mean, Old Style is Chicago's beer, but PBR is the Midwest beer. And I was like, this is the right representation. Like shout out Pulitzer Priceless. They got the PBR logo. Beautiful. Definitely
Yeah.
definitely a good get for the future.
Yeah, PBR is definitely like the beer of the Midwest, especially like the DIY musician beer, 100%. Like I'm honestly surprised, because everyone that's aware of Chicago, especially with like how TikTok has been blowing it up, everyone knows Malort at this point throughout the country. I've experienced Malort on my own and don't recommend it to anyone. But
Yeah, no.
there's what is it, and correct me if I'm wrong here. It's the Chicago handshake, but it's basically like, what is it, a High Life and
It's an
old style, and a
Mhm.
shot of Malort.
Terrible things to
That's
you.
brutal. That's brutal.
And the messed up thing is that you just go to a bar and you get your homie to say to the bartender it's their first time in Chicago, and they just uncork Malort without saying a thing. They'll just pour shots without telling you. They just know. It's like a terrible, beautiful prank to play on someone.
Absolutely heinous.
So I feel like, well, before I say this, my drinks for this episode were Modelo's, and I did start my pre-episode drink was an Urban Growler De Lovely Porter from a brewery here in St. Paul, which I was not a. I bought it from my neighbors, Jeff, Nikki. If you're watching this, I drank it because you guys never picked it up. But anyways, that's where I was at today. But I think I have a couple questions I want to ask before we fully end the episode. And I think the first one should be, since we're talking about it already, is what was your first Malort experience?
Oh, I wonder. Does anyone else here have? Is
I
everyone
don't
else
have
here
I don't have
might
a
I don't
be?
have one.
I was gonna say everyone else here is a Chicago native or an Illinois native, so I'm the
Oh
only
yeah.
person like who got the the initiation right rather. So
Mhm.
I was born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. Went to school in went to college in New Jersey. Came back home afterwards because COVID, like we all were. And then I was like, the North was way chiller than the South. Those are my people. And I came to Chicago. And yeah, my older sisters lived here for a few years, so when I came and visited, I got malorted, whatever. Um, and yeah, it's anyone who hasn't experienced, just like go buy a grapefruit and like chew up the grapefruit peel, and then also like pour like ethanol, just rubbing alcohol in your mouth at the same time. That's basically the experience. And yeah, I had it done to me. They pre-warned me at least. They were like, your first time in Chicago, you gotta have Malort. It's bad, but you just gotta. And I feel like I was kind of prepared from like, those like university snow days where like you pull up to like your older homie's house. It's like, what hasn't been drank around here? And he's like, this terrible absinthe. And it's like, great, we're doing absinthe shots all day because it's free and it's here. Um, so I was like ever so slightly prepared, but like I'm a baby still. I shuddered something heinous. I put it all down, but I shuddered.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My first one wasn't even in Chicago. There was a punk fest in the Quad Cities, and it was like right when the Quad Cities had finally started getting Malort. So this has been like quite a few years because Malort for the longest time was just Chicago only, and it branched out and they had like dollar shots of it. And my friend was like, here, I'm gonna buy us shots," and I was like, "Okay, cool." And he got it, and then like I remember I took that first sniff right before that shot, which you should never do, and it was just brutal. So I got him back, and I ended up doing like 2 shots of Malort that night, and I was like done after that. I was like, all right,
Brave soldier.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go home. Like I can't do this anymore.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, that'll put you out.
Yeah.
It just feels bad. It's like drinking something that has a ton of sugar in it. It's just like as soon as it hits your stomach, you're like, that was a mistake.
Um, but as like a 180 question, a fun question to kind of lead out is you know I've had a few Chicago bands on, but I don't feel like I've actually asked this question. Obviously, we know a lot of the great venues that are in Chicago. We have, like, Metro, B Kitchen, and etc. But like, what are some of your favorite venues to get to play at? Or that if someone's coming to town and there's going to be a local show that they should experience that show at?
Cobra Lounge for us, I think, is pretty unanimous. A lot of the sort of, I guess, post-hardcore bands in the scene, the smaller projects, I guess, um, come through here, and they book Cobra Lounge a lot. And us being able to play that was super sick. I should mention some bigger bands like when Knocked Loose, just before they hit their like peak and like playing Coachella and Lala. Actually, I think when they played Lala last year, they did like an after show or something at Cobra Lounge, which is really cool. I didn't go, but I can imagine, just because it's like a medium-sized room, probably like 600 max, maybe a little less. And hardcore shows and Knock Loose, they just go crazy.
Oh,
But
yeah.
Cobra Lounge is a great venue. It's small, really cool vibe though, and super cool bar, um, and pretty good food too. They treat us well enough, and yeah, just everyone there's super nice. So Cobra Lounge for
Agreed
sure.
on agreed on Cobra Lounge. I would also say Bottom Lounge. I've been there like so many times in my youth, and then when I finally got to play there, I felt like I was gonna like shat my pants like right before I went on. But yeah, I've seen like See Space Cowboy there. I met and saw the band Covet there. Last summer we all saw Hail the Sun there. So it's just like we keep coming back, and then I think I'm there this Saturday actually to see Space Cowboy again. So um, I'm excited for that show and excited to go back to that venue because they also have like a similar vibe to a little bigger than Cobra, but great food, great atmosphere, just like all around a great venue.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
The Bottom Lounge shows that I've seen were wonderful. One of Noemi's bands, Lavender Point, played there with like 10 Month Summer and Ghoul for a Goblin and
Mhm.
Modify and like just a really insane lineup. And like that was one of the nights that I got to bring one of my homies out who like doesn't get to go to as many DIY shows, and he was just starstruck. He was like I am so overwhelmed by just like how awesome the talent is and how much everyone here is about it and just like loves people. Like I thought people were gonna like mic grab during the 10-month summer set. Like like Chicago rides hard, you know? Like the only reason that some Chicago shows are like not well attended is because there's so many dope shows happening the same night that people already have tickets to, you know? Like
Yeah,
it's
true.
so great. I mean, like even the really small venues, like we have a homie who operates like a DIY house venue here, My Place, Ohio, really paradoxical. It's in Chicago, but it's kind of part of the vibe. Throws off the feds. Um, and it's like depending on like the time of year and just how hot it is, they throw shows in the garage and the basement. And it's like the homie who runs that, like he puts bands up, like he like brings them dinner, like he's like, oh shit, one of your members is vegan, let me run to the store and get some like vegan like shit to throw in the oven, like you show up and there's just like beers like in a cooler, like just have a good time. It's like there's fight like like he has this PC set up with like fighting games in like the merch room. Shit's crazy. And that's like the smallest newest venue in Chicago. Like I can't impress this
Mhm.
upon people enough. It's just a dope place to play. So like hit people up. There's like DIY to full size. It's just like a phenomenal city for real.
Yeah, for sure. I think myself, probably say Cobra Lounge. I just the energy there was really good. It was just a very fun night. Um, and then of course My Place, Ohio, just being able to play in someone's garage is pretty cool. And I think that was one of our first shows. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's almost our like 1 year anniversary of our first time playing there, which was technically our second show. When was it? Like September 8th, September 10th,
Yeah, it was like our
and
public
it's yeah,
debut, basically,
hmm
because our first
and
show is
yeah,
Noemi's graduation party.
yeah, technically. we've come a long way, guys.
But yeah,
Yeah.
shout out Wiley at Cobra Lounge. The sound was beautiful that night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, those are all solid solid options. Like, the few bands that I've talked to, like they kind of reiterate a lot of the same things with the venues and like hopefully all these people that are going to Chicago, whether to see a show or they're booking a tour to go through. Obviously, check out those venues. Also, check out this new house venue because it's always nice to have a solid house venue spot to like put on shows, and it sounds great that like the promoters and like the hosts are like so catering to the bands that come through. Like that's something that like a little bit goes a long way with any touring band, and like that'll make them keep coming back, no problem. So that's great to hear that there's something still going in Chicago like that.
Absolutely. Because even like, some of the DIY like venues have like had to move or like gotten busted. And like just the fact that new spots do crop up in their absence, and like My Place Ohio really got going because they saved a bunch of shows from another DIY spot that got shut down right at the start of their season. So there were already a ton of shows lined up. So it's like, yeah, it's a very great scene. It picks each other up a lot. So definitely recommend. But we need to make sure that when people come from like the east or like the south to Chicago, that they continue on to Minnesota, because I've heard Minnesota has a ball in music scene.
Dude, Minnesota's fucking sick with the music scene that they have or we have here, and I'm hoping to get more homies to roll through. A lot of things in the works, and by in the works I mean like it's in my mind and I haven't capitalized yet, but it'll
It's
happen.
got to start there.
It's got to start somewhere, but yeah, hopefully 2025 and beyond bring some more homies through, and hopefully just homies just come through in general. Um, but that's I think a conversation for another episode. Don't want to get ahead of myself on that one. And plus, we're talking about Antillion, and I've had a great time talking on this episode with the four of you. But before I end this episode, I like to end off these episodes on a even higher note than we already are right now. So my final question to each one of you is, from your time in Antillion, what has been your favorite moment that you've experienced so far, or like the moment that you always think back of like, holy shit, like this is it?
Before anyone takes it, playing ending at Cobra Lounge and literally all of our homies doing a circle pit. Unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely really dope. Shout out homie. Was it Teddy who yelled Antillion
Yeah.
like 20 times during the set?
Yes.
God, that was beautiful. We have great video of Cobra Lounge that we'll eventually post, and you're gonna whatever song it is, you're gonna hear Antillion like 3 times. It was beautiful. It was definitely like the most like love and energy we've had. It was our biggest headliner, and like it was like 40-50 people there. They really made us feel it. It was super dope. Yeah, also a great one.
Yeah. I think for me, well, at our first show, there were a lot of families there because it was Noemi's graduation party, and our first pit was a bunch of toddlers, so
Oh right,
that was pretty
yeah.
wholesome. That was pretty awesome.
The first
Yeah,
movie
that
dance to
better than
Antillion.
mine.
Yeah, and probably the first, I think at this first or second time first time we played book club, it was just like I get really anxious about playing shows, or like I used to. So it was very difficult for me to like get up on stage and do everything. And so I got up. I was panicking before, but we made it through it and everything. And it was just very cathartic afterwards to be like, okay, yeah, you did it and you did it well. And there's no reason to be afraid. Just do what you like to do.
Yeah. For me, I'll do one that's more recent. We recently recorded something, I won't spoil what, but some upcoming stuff at Electro Audio Studios, and that in itself was just a crazy experience. Like, R.I.P. Steve Albini. If you don't know who he is, he recorded like some crazy people in his time. I don't have the full list, but you can look him up later. He's a recording legend. And that was his studio. So it was really cool to record there and experience like the full sort of experience. It was, I think it was all of our first time in like a like a renowned studio. Um, and Motion City soundtrack was there, so that was pretty cool. Pretty starstruck moment. Shout out Al, who
The only person in our band who
talked to them.
didn't know who they
He-
were
he-
was the one they talked to.
Straight up talked to them and is like, yeah, what band do you play for? And he's like, oh yeah, Motion City soundtrack. He's like, oh cool, never heard of you guys. That was probably the greatest moment of my entire life. But yeah, Mike.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think that probably either that first book club show, because it was like we got the announcement over like the house speakers like 2 songs in or something that they were at full capacity, and now like the ticketed capacity for book club is like 60, which means like there's a total of like 70 80 people in the room, but that's because it's upstairs and the floor will cave in otherwise, but the room was packed wall to wall. And I think that was definitely like a really fantastic experience. It was just like the first time that we had that much like energy really assembled for us and people going hard even though they didn't know us. But like I think there was also like I think my favorite memory for me, if it's not that book club trip, would be the Kalamazoo trip. Just because like the very, experience of getting to travel to a new place, see somewhere new, meet new people, and like, the homies who I hit up, you know, are from Chicago, but we also happened to be playing on that show with people I'd spoken to from Michigan already before, just online, and gotten to listen to their stuff. Red Deck wins. Um, so just getting like that was the first time that we really took people who we had no business for our lives ever intersecting, and we got to meet and have an awesome time together. And I really loved their music, and they really loved our music, and just like being able to like meet those people and share that experience and like drive home like super tired. Like I passed out in like the last like 20 minutes of the last band set. To my knowledge, didn't we get stopped early by the cops?
Yeah.
I was asleep.
Yeah.
I was passed out, mouth open on the couch, like
Yeah.
fighting for my life. But just that experience of like going somewhere new and then coming back, and like Red Deck wins, just like hitting us up after, and like and me hitting them up and just being like, that was great. It was so nice to meet y'all, and like just have exactly like that experience. Like we have friends somewhere now. Like they were like, if we got there a little earlier, we could have fucking hung out at the skate park because they live like 2 minutes from the venue we were playing at. Like that's just awesome. And it felt like, the first step on like the most important part of like this band journey, which is like getting out there and like getting to like spread out and like expand our experiences and our borders and just like touch new people and like be impacted and impressed and like fall in love with new music in a new place just because we're in this band. So sick. I love it.
I mean, like I said, I'm stoked for the 4 of you plus Al to keep experiencing these moments and like keep growing from there. And like I'm truly am stoked to see what comes next after Aftertaste. Like just to see how cohesive it's going to be after this. Not to say that Aftertaste wasn't cohesive, but like we talked about, it's kind of just like everyone had their main touches on it. But to see it all come together on this, what's coming next, and this next chapter is going to be amazing. And I know, like everyone listening is also going to be very stoked on it. If anyone's looking for merch, music, or Antillion in general, where can they find it?
So we're Antillion band everywhere, spelled like ant and million, but like no N. Um, and that's Twitter and Instagram primarily. Definitely hit us up on YouTube if you like listening to like that live show. You can only hear one guitar amp. The cymbals are like 90% of what's in the audio track. I love that shit. I just like seeing people go like nutso on stage. So if that's what you're about, we got a lot of that on YouTube as well. But yeah, Antillion band. We DIY print like with like rubber blocks and like fabric ink all of our own merch right now, but we're working together with some local people. We're trying to figure out what'll work for us to get some more widely produced things out. But right now, the best way to get merch is come to one of our shows or just DM us on Instagram. We've shipped stuff out before. It's no problem at all. And yeah, thank you so much again for having us. It's so sick to get to share it with you, for real.
Yeah.
No, I mean, thank the four of you for taking the time or wanting to be a part of one of these episodes. Like I said, I'm just a dude that does this in my house, and like the fact that anyone is like, I want to be on your show is crazy to me, and I appreciate it so much, and I appreciate all the kind words that you have said about the podcast earlier and before this episode. Like, I appreciate those to the full extent, and I mean, you guys are killing it, and I'm really stoked on everything. So I appreciate us getting to sit down and do this.
Yeah, thank you so much. Hopefully we'll
Yeah.
come
That
out
means a lot.
to a city near you or even Minnesota someday.
Dude,
Mhm.
hell yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
If you guys ever roll through, I have a whole empty house that I just live in by myself.
Yeah.
I got plenty of space for y'all, so
Hell yeah.
come check out the Beers with Band's house. One last big shout out to the four of you for taking the time out of your Monday to sit down with me. Everyone, go listen to Antillion, go listen to Aftertaste, and be ready for everything they have coming next. And I'll catch everyone on the next episode.
Sounds like a
Yeah.
plan.
Awesome.
Thanks so much,
Yeah.
See
homie.
ya.
Bye.
Peace.